to another episode of A Feminine Moment. I am Cherry Lynn, and I am here with Dixie and Forsyth. Hi, Dixie.
Hi, Cherry.
Dixie is the author of Fascinating Womanhood for the Timeless Woman, now an international Amazon bestseller. We're so happy to have you here to talk about a fun subject called the rat filter. What exactly is a rat filter?
Okay, this is written in the chapter Notes to Single Women for single women, but it can apply to all of us in other areas of our lives because there's a few rats out there. And by that I mean men that are not, we should kind of stay away from and minimize contact. Sometimes they're relatives. The reason we came up with this title, How to Spot a Rat, is I was, a couple of years ago, I was writing a blog article. I was needing to write one, and I was at a reunion with my sister, who's a nurse at one of the hospitals in Arizona. Said, well, all the nurses say they want to know how to spot a rat when online dating.
I love it.
Online dating. And I thought that's a great title. So I used it thinking a lot of online dating because you don't even know whether the picture of the guy is the real person. People can present themselves temporarily any way they want. And they can try to, but there's a lot of things about a person that they won't consciously know they're doing that are maybe red flags. And in the book, I talk about how if you see a red flag, it doesn't mean you should dump him. It means you need to check it out. There may be another explanation for it, but it is a red flag. There's certain people in the book I say that you should have nothing to do with. And, to me, they're the obvious, like serial cheaters, criminals, really abusive people. We all kind of know that. And
those are the obvious ones.
Those are the really obvious ones. Of pimps, come on, don't date a pimp. It's just not going to work out. So, but there's less obvious things. There's guys that if you married them, you'd really not be happy. And so, there's some things you can look for. One of them is, and I did get out my book to remember all of them because I haven't memorized everything. Is he superficial? Does he just, is he charming, but does he just talk about superficial things and nothing really of any substance? Just sort of stuff, chit chat.
What are some examples of that? What does that sound like?
His car, clothes, jewelry, travel, just stuff that is, and it probably leans more to the look what I've got kind of a thing.
Okay.
Another one is he really critical of others when he talks to you? Like, I hate my boss, my coworkers are awful. Does he ever speak well of other people? Does he have friends? Actual friends, not social acquaintances, but friends that he likes and likes to be with and stuff like that.
We're not talking about 600 friends on Facebook. We're talking
about not those kind of friends. Friends that actually think really well of him. To us, it seems normal, and you don't think to always look for that. How does he have friends? We knew a guy once that, as we got to know him, we realized none of his family would have anything to do with him. Now, that was kind of a red flag. We worried about it. But see, the way you need to investigate, the reason you need to is because I thought, well, what if he just has some really weird relatives?
Right.
So, because there is a potential explanation, but it turns out the first thought was true. It was a big red flag. Is he a self-promoter? Does he talk a lot about how great he is, his muscles, how much money he makes, that sort of thing? Men who focus mainly on themselves are more likely to be narcissistic and self-centered. More likely, not 100%. So we're not just making blanket statements. Is he unambitious or lazy? That's sort of a big thing. Is he interested in his appearance? I mean, you could marry somebody who has no interest in hygiene or appearance, but most of us want to marry someone who takes care of themselves.
What about the ones that are obsessive about their appearance?
That's another red flag. That tends towards self-centered and narcissism. And I say tends towards because we're not trying to be therapists here, but when you do choose someone to spend your life with, you have to decide what you think about them. So these are just things that you can watch for. You have to judge who to be your friends and who to marry.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of gray here, and what you're trying to do is just offer up a look at these categories and consider them. Just because some man, is obsessed with working out or something like that doesn't necessarily mean that he's a rat. It just means it's something. Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right. What if he just likes being in really good shape? I knew a woman once that taught a gym class I went to, and she was really well built, muscle defined, and she said it runs in her family. Which we're saying is things to pay attention to.
Yes.
And if you see a red flag, check it out. Exactly. Don't if you see a red flag, dump him. That's way too narrow.
Right.
So does he talk about personal growth? Is he interested in doing what's right? Does he say, oh, that's not right? Or, is he interested in personal growth, or is he just superficial? Another one, is he spiritual? That doesn't necessarily mean religious. Does he believe in something higher than himself? People who tend to do that tend to be a little more humble because they realize there's something greater than themselves. Here's a good one. Does he talk graphically about sex? Some women actually think that that's sexy. It's actually kind of a red flag if he's an online guy. Or let's say it's in person. He doesn't even hardly know you. And he constantly talks about how hot you are and how great your body is. It can be too much. It goes beyond a compliment till it seems a little obsessive. It's another kind of superficial or downstairs, as we talk about in Timeless, way of looking at you. Here's a big one. Is he willing to wait for sex after marriage? If he says absolutely not, and maybe that's all he wants from you. That's the main thing. And once he has that, he kind of starts losing interest. Because, in Timeless, we talk about when you have sex, your body produces oxytocin. And it's not only a pleasure thing, but it's also bonding. And women produce a lot more than men. Men produce it, but they also produce testosterone, which blocks a lot of the oxytocin. What that means is they don't bond as easily through sex like women do. And because we're the ones who risk getting our hearts broken and feeling abandoned, like, hey, I thought we had something. And then he's got another girl and he's off. And then because we have bonded to them, we're the ones that get shafted, the broken heart over it. And plus, we're the gatekeepers of civilization. We're the ones that risk pregnancy, venereal disease, and all that kind of stuff. We risk it more. So is he willing to? If he says no, I know some marriages that had disastrous marriages, and I thought, just think, if the woman had not done that before, he would have been long gone. He would never have waited. So anyway, you might get away with it, but then again, you might not. Another one is, how does he treat those who serve him? Waiters, waitresses, people carry your bags out to the car. People who are of no financial consequence to him. How does he treat them? Is he addicted to anything? By anything, I don't mean chocolate. Does he engage in high-risk behaviors, such as illegal activities of any kind? Selling drugs. I mean, that's sort of a red flag. Does he seem comfortable with attitudes such as men aren't meant to be monogamous? I mean, you'd think that would be really obvious, but a lot of women that I've talked to kind of don't take it into context that this is emotionally dangerous for me.
I think it depends too on how involved. If you meet someone and you go on a few dates with them and you're head over heels, and then you start to discover some of these things, I think unfortunately you start to turn a bit of a blind eye to it.
Yes.
Rose-colored glasses, and
what I've discovered is it's like if you know ahead of time, you say, okay, I've learned this, this, and this. Then your heart isn't involved at that point. You're sitting here and you're hearing this video. Then if something happens, you'll already have the red flag. You won't do it afterwards. It's hard to do it after. But if before your heart is really intertwined with them, if you say, I'm going to watch out for guys who are drug dealers, for example, I'll do a real obvious one. Then when you meet one, you're going to already have kind of the rat catcher spotter on, like, I need to check this out. Actually, that's too obvious. I would say not check this out. I wouldn't recommend dating a drug dealer. It's too risky.
What about the women out there that are saying they find these things out, but they think, well, he might change?
That fall. I'm really glad you brought that up, because that falls under the category of you can't change another person, even though you can reword it to say he might change on his own. It's possible, but if you do marry him, you have to assume he will never change, and if he does, it's a nice surprise. If you just hope, that's kind of assuming that you're going to try and influence him to change. It's really not that difficult to understand when you point it towards yourself. How do I feel if someone is trying to change me? I resist it. But on the other hand, if someone says how great I did at something, or how much they like me, it makes me tend to want to do better. But they have to be sincere, or I'll feel it. If they just say it to try to get me to change, you feel that too. Another one is how does he treat his family, especially children and animals? How does he treat people? And there's some little kids, quite a few, I wouldn't say all, who are sensitive to the rats. Sometimes little kids don't like being around. Have you ever had a baby that liked certain people and didn't like somebody else? Yeah, and they tend to have more of a sense. So how do they treat little kids? How do they feel about children? Here's another one I've experienced through others. Does he try to borrow money from you and get you into to sign on a loan or something that you could end up getting stuck with? You'd think nobody would do these things, but they actually do. That's where I got it from. So if you can know about these things in advance and forewarn yourself, or even if you're in a relationship with somebody and you're feeling kind of like everything isn't quite right, you have every right to investigate further and look at these things. And you may feel like you're judgmental, but you have to judge who you marry. You just have to. There's no other way to do it. You want to marry as good of a guy as you can.
I think too, this is a great list to share. All the ladies out there that are watching, this is a great list to share with your friends, because I know for me, when I was dating and I was in that life of trying to find someone, I would always run them by my friends. And many times, unfortunately, the friends that I had kind of had the same rose-colored glasses that I did.
We tend to think we can change people. And I think with women, to support women, I think it is natural for us because we raise children, because it's expected of us when we're parents. And even if we're not a parent yet, it's kind of born into us to nurture. And so we have to raise kids. You have to teach your children how to be responsible, how to be polite, how to make their bed, all these different things. So you feel like you're changing them rather than just teaching them. But men don't marry women to be their mother. Almost never. So that's why we're trying to warn young women now, or any women who whether they're single at 45 or whatever, to tell them about the rat filter so they can have more tools to work with, especially if it's online. But we went out to dinner with a young couple that had just gotten engaged, and she wanted to know from Bob what he thought about him. And we walked out of the restaurant. He said, "That's one of the most narcissistic guys I've ever met." Now, sure, Bob is a psychologist, and he can tell that maybe he can pinpoint it maybe faster than some. But a lot of us will get weird vibes. If you get weird vibes, check it out.
I like what you say about don't wait for them to change, or don't expect them to change. Don't be with someone.
Yeah, the thing is, Cherry, you were right that he might change, but then again, he may not. And you can't know.
Or he might change in 20 years. And are you willing to wait that long?
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, you feel like a better person if you say he might change.
Right.
So that's the other caveat that we've got in there, is that you feel like, well, I'm really bad, I'm really judgmental, and you can't be too judgmental. You can be way too judgmental. That's why we say they're flags. Now, the deal breakers I listed in the book, very few. Murderers, serial killers, rapists, all those things that we'd say, well, of course, but people actually marry those guys. If no one ever did, we wouldn't even mention it. But for most of it, that's really obvious. Most of the men out there are, are not like that. They're not that bad. Some of them are abusive. And find out about his family life. Just, you need to know who you're going to marry, you're going to spend your life with, or be divorced from. Divorces are not only financially expensive, they're emotionally expensive, just devastating. So what we're trying to do is help women have the best possible relationships, because there's a lot of really good men out there. There still are, and what to look for and what to watch out for.
Well, this has been so wonderful. Thank you so much for all the wonderful advice. I know this is something that we get a lot of questions about, so I hope it's helped everyone.
And we see your baby back there diligently being a domestic goddess with her little vacuum.
Sorry about how loud she's being.
Oh, I think she's so cute.
But thank you everyone for watching. Hopefully you'll tune in next Friday when we have a new episode, and we will see you then. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.